someone. Good morning, everyone. How are you today? This is Dennison, your host of Through the Looking Glass, here on Mondays from 9 to 10 on the great WIOX radio, live and local here in the Catskill Mountains. Today we have a really interesting guest, an interview with Dr. Tim Coles out of England. This interview took place a few days ago, and I'm going to play the recording of it here today. And Through the Looking Glass, we try to get into stories that aren't covered in the mainstream news. We try and get a little deeper, things you don't catch from CNN or Fox or MSNBC or NPR, New York Times, things that they're not really looking at. We try to dig up and see what's there. So, Tim's story, Dr. Tim Coles' story is one of censorship at really high levels. A professor at the respected Plymouth University was dismissed just outright without a hearing or due process. No chance for him to express grievances. They didn't want to hear from him at all. He was locked out of his administrative account, his emails. He was working on research to help blind people with audio description of things they cannot see on screen. So he felt the present technology was insufficient to the needs of many people whose vision is limited. He's trying to improve people's lives. He's trying to make auto description superior so that people could actually understand the images that they weren't seeing. This is pretty noble work. So what was his crime? No, he didn't sexually harass anyone, misgender anyone. He wasn't fired for making controversial statements at Plymouth University to the classroom or to other folks. No, in fact, he doesn't even know why he was summarily dismissed from his life's path. He suspects it might be a series of articles he wrote for Nexus magazine in Australia. In there, he wrote about child trafficking, Epstein's organization, and basically the intelligence community's role in this really awful, awful subject matter. Why would Plymouth University want to suppress this? I mean, don't we want such hideous policies and people stopped? Child trafficking? Put a light on it. That's how you stop things. That's what he was trying to do. And these are side articles that had nothing to do with the university. He was paid money like any professor would who writes articles, So why would they stop him? We need to show this to everyone, because if it can happen to Tim, it can happen to anybody. He wanted to have a meeting where he could have a rational discussion on why he was dismissed, but there seems like there's no debate was allowed. Tim was told in bold letters, do not contact us. Tim's expressing views really in those articles that Democracy Now! In this country aired 30 years ago repeatedly and was fine. The Democracy Now! Today really doesn't do that. But Tim was, kind of a Noam Chomsky fellow, where he had his expertise in one subject, but he also had very strong and well thought out opinions on others. So I'm really sorry to see this happen at Dr. Tim Coles from England, but we're going to hear from him directly. We're going to tell his story through his words. So let's cut to our interview with Dr. Timothy Coles here on WIOX's Through the Looking Glass.
PhD, you had tenure. Things look great. You're writing, you're prolific, you're doing research. They should be thrilled to have you. And suddenly you're out. So what's the story of how you were censored and dismissed?
Well, thanks for asking. It was all a bit of a mystery to me, really, because what happened, I got my PhD back in 2017. And then pretty much soon after that, I got funding from a British trust, a charity, to research blindness and visual impairment. This is at the University of Plymouth in the UK through the Cognition Institute. So basically the charity was paying the funding for the research and the university was acting as a host. And my position was a postdoctoral researcher. So that was my subject, blindness and visual impairment. And I was trying to make a device that could help blind people enjoy visual media more efficiently. Because there's a thing called audio description, where if you can't see at all or can't see very well, you can switch on audio description and it gives you, it describes the visual action. But it's quite a flawed system, so I was looking at ways to improve that. But many years before then, and continuing up to the present, I also write about politics and human rights and geopolitics and the economy and what we'd call parapolitics, or what other people might less generously call conspiracy theory. That doesn't mean that I endorse a lot of conspiracy theories, but it's an interesting field to research anyway. That was completely separate from my university writings. I didn't submit anything about politics or conspiracy to the university. And anyway, this continued for years. So I became a postdoctoral researcher in 2018. And I never had an issue. Nobody ever complained about my work or my conduct. When I was a student, nobody ever complained about me as a student, as far as I know, anyway. Then last October, I found myself locked out of my university email account without warning or notice. And I thought, well, it might be a hack or it might be a technical issue. That happens sometimes. So I contacted the IT support, and nobody would tell me what was going on. And usually they're quite helpful at IT. So I thought, okay, this is a bit strange. Maybe it's to do with what I've been writing outside the university. And unfortunately, that turned out to be the case. The way it worked, at least for me, was that in order to continue having a university email account, there had to be a member of staff who authorized it. So I contacted the sponsor of my account, and he said, oh yes, I forgot to tell you, there's emails about you flying around between staff. Something about a Nexus magazine. Well, Nexus is a big magazine in Australia that has a global distribution, and they cover all sorts of topics. I've written, many articles for them about all sorts of things. And there was nothing specific said. So I managed to get hold of the emails that the staff were writing about me. And it was pretty appalling, because some anonymous complainant who is still protected by the university, they won't reveal who it is. They wrote to my old PhD examiner called Jane Grant. And I've got the emails from Jane Grant onwards. So she basically wrote to the doctoral college saying, who is this guy Coles? He claims to be a postdoctoral researcher here. See if you can find out who he is. Well, that was a different department. She's in Department of Arts and Languages, I think, but I was by then in the psychology school, so at the Cognition Institute. So they wouldn't have had a record of me there. But anyway, the doctoral college found my details, and they were passing it on to the administrators, and they identified me from a photo from my student days, and they looked me up on Google and said, yes, it's him. And so then, according to the emails, they said to IT, can you lock this guy's account? He's writing things that we don't like. And Jane Grant said she actually wrote nothing specific, just general and outlandish conspiracy theory. And she mentioned Nexus. So I was not told that this was happening, and I was not accused of anything specific, and I was not given any chance to rebut or state my case. And this is a total violation of protocol, because if you have a problem with somebody, well, the decent thing on a human level is to confront them and say, I don't like what you're doing. Maybe have a discussion about it. But if you want to go through formal professional channels, they should have taken it to a complaints procedure. But that never happened. They just unilaterally used their power as professors to lean on IT to lock me out of my account. And basically, Jane Grant said, be good to have him not on our books. So that was their way of doing that. And
the good old fashioned witch hunt, it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. And we can come on to the broader picture if you wish later.
Absolutely. Yep.
So anyway, the guy that was sponsoring my email account, he was in a different department in business. So I wrote to his boss, Katie Anglis, and said, what's going on? So she said, yeah, you're writing things that we don't like, but again, nothing specific. And then she actually threatened me. She wrote an email saying, do not contact us, or do not try and get your email account reactivated. And she wrote some of the text in bold and underlined as if she was shouting at me. So I thought, who the hell do you think you are telling me who I can and can't write to? So they completely bypassed all procedure. It never went to a complaints panel. I never had a chance to rebut anything or defend myself. So I wrote to the doctoral college, which said, we can't help you. It's nothing to do with us. But they're copied into the emails. They were part of the mechanism that leaned on IT to get my account suspended. So that was a complete lie. So then I wrote to the vice chancellor of the university explaining what had happened. I provided them with the leaked emails. They assigned an investigator who agreed that they should not have deleted my account in the way they did without warning. And he said it should be unlocked just for 1 month while I get my contacts. But after that, I'm finished, basically. So that was his opinion. I'm currently pursuing it through other means, but
good.
It's so that was